Have you ever watched your child step onto the field, the court, the track, the pool deck, or the stage, and suddenly everything clicks? Their body seems to know exactly what to do. Their instincts take over. Their timing is sharp. Their confidence rises. For a moment, you see the talent, the focus, the fire, and the potential you have always known was there. You are not imagining it. You really are seeing their ability come alive. And then, not long after, that same child cannot find their shoes, forgets the play, misses the warm-up, argues with the coach, loses their temper, or looks so scattered that you wonder if they have ever played the sport before. That contrast can feel confusing, frustrating, and even heartbreaking for a parent. One moment, you are watching brilliance. The next moment, you are watching disorganization, emotional reactivity, or complete inconsistency. This is the emotional whiplash so many parents of ADHD athletes and performers experience. You find yourself standing on the sideline, sitting in the bleachers, waiting by the pool deck, or standing outside the theater thinking, wait a minute, are they talented or not? Do they care or not? Are they trying or not? You see the instinct, the spark, the timing, the creativity, the competitiveness, the stage presence, the athletic intelligence, and the raw potential. But you also see the missed cue, the forgotten play, the lost gear, the poor warm-up, the distracted body language, and the coach giving direction while your child appears to be somewhere else entirely. When you do not understand the brain underneath the behavior, it becomes painfully easy to mislabel that inconsistency as laziness, attitude, disrespect, lack of discipline, or wasted potential. But what if the issue is not that your child lacks talent? What if the issue is that their brain has difficulty accessing that talent consistently when pressure, transition, boredom, emotional intensity, fatigue, sensory overload, or low dopamine enter the system? For many ADHD athletes and performers, the ability is real. The challenge is not whether the talent exists. The challenge is helping the brain access that talent more consistently. Welcome back to the Path to Peace Therapy podcast. I'm Stephanie Buckley, parenting strategist, ADHD specialist, family systems coach, and a mother who understands both personally and professionally how complicated it can be to raise a neurodivergent child in a world that often rewards consistency before it understands capacity. In this podcast, we talk about ADHD, anxiety, OCD, mood disorders, family systems, emotional regulation, and the practical strategies parents can use to bring more structure, calm, and connection into their homes. Today, we are talking about the ADHD athlete. And I want to say this from the start. The ADHD athlete may be incredibly talented. They may be gifted, creative, explosive, intuitive, fast, bold, strategic, competitive, or naturally athletic. They may have moments where their instincts take over and everyone around them can see the potential. But talent by itself does not organize a backpack. Talent by itself does not regulate disappointment after a mistake. Talent by itself does not remember a coach's 3-step instruction. Talent by itself does not build a pre-game routine, manage transitions, tolerate boredom during practice, or help a child reset after frustration. That is where executive function comes in. Executive function is the brain's management system. It helps with planning, organization, working memory, time management, emotional regulation, attention shifting, and follow through. For an ADHD athlete, executive function is often the bridge between raw ability and consistent performance. It helps the child show up prepared, listen to coaching, recover after mistakes, remember the play, pack the right gear, and access their ability more reliably under pressure. And that is the part so many parents overlook. They see the talent and assume consistency should naturally follow. But for many ADHD athletes, talent is real and inconsistency is real too. The goal is not to question whether they care. The goal is to build the executive function systems that help their talent show up more often. Try again and be more compassionate, and let the parent know, I get it, how they can look at their athlete in a different light. In this podcast, we talk about ADHD, anxiety, OCD, mood disorders, family systems, emotional regulation, and the practical strategies parents can use to bring more structure, calm, and connection into their homes. Today, we are talking about the ADHD athlete. And before we go any further, I want to pause and speak to the parent who feels confused, frustrated, or even heartbroken by the inconsistency they see in their child. I get it. You watch your child do something brilliant in one moment, and then in the next moment, they forget their gear, miss the warm-up, lose their temper, tune out the coach, or seem completely unprepared. It can be so hard not to wonder, do they care? Are they trying? Why can't they just do what I know they are capable of doing? But I want to help you look at your athlete through a different lens. The ADHD athlete may be incredibly talented. They may be gifted, creative, explosive, intuitive, fast, bold, strategic, competitive, or naturally athletic. They may have moments where their instincts take over and everyone around them can see the potential. But talent by itself does not organize a backpack. Talent by itself does not regulate disappointment after a mistake. Talent by itself does not remember a coach's 3-step instruction. Talent by itself does not build a pre-game routine, manage transitions, tolerate boredom during practice, or help a child reset after frustration. That is where executive function comes in. Executive function is the brain's management system. It helps with planning, organization, working memory, time management, emotional regulation, attention shifting, and follow-through. For an ADHD athlete, executive function is often the bridge between raw ability and consistent performance. It helps the child show up prepared, listen to coaching, recover after mistakes, remember the play, pack the right gear, and access their ability more reliably under pressure. So if you have been looking at your child's inconsistency as laziness, attitude, or wasted potential, I want this episode to give you a new way to understand what you are seeing. Your child may not lack talent. They may lack the executive function scaffolding that allows that talent to show up consistently. And once we understand that, we can stop leading with shame and start building the systems that help them succeed. Go even deeper, I love this. In this podcast, we talk about ADHD, anxiety, OCD, mood disorders, family systems, emotional regulation, and the practical strategies parents can use to bring more structure, calm, and connection into their homes. Today, we are talking about the ADHD athlete. And before we go any further, I want to slow this down and speak directly to the parent who has sat in the stands, stood on the sideline, waited by the pool deck, watched from the audience, or driven home in silence after a game or performance, feeling completely confused by what they just saw. I get it. You may have watched your child do something extraordinary one day. They saw the play before it happened. They moved with instinct. They reacted faster than everyone else. They performed with confidence, creativity, intensity, and fire. And in that moment, you felt hopeful because you could see the athlete, the performer, the competitor, and the potential so clearly. And then, almost without warning, you may watch that same child unravel over something that seems small from the outside. They cannot find their shoes. They forget their gear. They miss warm-up. They lose their temper after feedback. They ignore the coach's instruction. They walk onto the field or stage emotionally flat, distracted, disorganized, or disconnected. And you are left thinking, how can both of these things be true? How can my child be so talented and so inconsistent? How can they care so deeply one day and look like they do not care at all the next? That confusion can create a very specific kind of parental heartbreak because you are not imagining their ability. You really have seen it. You know it is there. But I want to invite you to look at your athlete through a different lens. What if the inconsistency is not proof that your child lacks character? What if it is not laziness, disrespect, lack of discipline, or wasted potential? What if what you are seeing is the gap between talent and executive function? Talent is the raw ability. Talent is the instinct, speed, creativity, strength, timing, vision, competitiveness, stage presence, or athletic intelligence. Executive function is the system that helps that talent become reliable. Executive function is what helps your child pack the right gear, arrive on time, remember the play, listen to coaching, tolerate frustration, recover after a mistake, regulate their body, manage pressure, and stay mentally present when the environment becomes overwhelming. That is the part so many parents miss, and honestly, it makes sense that they miss it. Because when a child is gifted, we often assume that ability should automatically create consistency. We think if they can do it once, they should be able to do it every time. But ADHD does not work that way. ADHD is not a disorder of knowing. It is often a disorder of accessing. Your child may know what to do, but struggle to access that knowledge when their nervous system is flooded, when dopamine is low, when the environment is overstimulating, when the coach gives multiple instructions at once, when they feel criticized, when they are bored during drills, or when they make one mistake and emotionally spiral. So when your child forgets the play, it may not be because they did not care enough to listen. It may be working memory. Working memory is the brain's ability to hold information in mind long enough to use it. A coach may say, start wide, watch the defender, then cut back inside, and your child may understand it in the moment. But then the whistle blows, the crowd gets loud, another player moves unexpectedly, their body fills with adrenaline, and one or two parts of the instruction disappear. From the outside, it looks like they ignored the coach. From the inside, the brain lost the sequence. When your child melts down after feedback, it may not be because they are spoiled or unwilling to be coached. It may be emotional dysregulation. Emotional dysregulation means the nervous system has difficulty managing the intensity of an emotional response and returning to a calm state. For an ADHD athlete, correction can sometimes land like criticism, even when the coach means it constructively. Their body may react before their thinking brain catches up. They may snap, shut down, cry, argue, or look checked out because the feedback triggered shame, embarrassment, or rejection sensitivity. Rejection sensitivity means the person experiences perceived criticism or disappointment very intensely. It is not drama. It is a nervous system reaction that feels bigger on the inside than it looks from the outside. When your child cannot find their gear, it may not be because they are irresponsible in the way we often use that word. It may be weak task architecture. Task architecture means the structure around the task is not strong enough to support success. If the cleats, goggles, mouthguard, uniform, water bottle, towel, or script pages are scattered around the house, the ADHD brain has to use working memory, sequencing, planning, and time awareness all at once. That is a lot of executive load before they even arrive at the event. A checklist by the door, a labeled sports bin, a packing routine the night before, and natural consequences when appropriate do not lower the standard. They build the bridge to meet it. When your child looks bored, distracted, or disengaged during practice, it may not be because they lack passion. It may be dopamine regulation. Dopamine is part of the brain's motivation and reward system. Many ADHD brains struggle with low stimulation tasks because those tasks do not create enough internal activation. A game may wake up the brain because it has urgency, competition, novelty, feedback, and emotion. But repetitive drills may feel painfully understimulating. This is why an ADHD athlete can look brilliant during competition and completely scattered during practice. The game gives the brain stimulation. The drill may not. That does not mean practice does not matter. It means the child may need structure, challenge, variation, and immediate feedback to stay engaged. And this is where compassion and accountability must live together. We are not saying they have ADHD, so it does not matter if they forget gear, ignore coaches, or lose their temper. We are saying, now that we understand what may be happening in the brain, we can intervene more effectively. Instead of shaming the child for inconsistency, we build systems. Instead of calling them lazy, we create routines. Instead of assuming they do not care, we teach emotional recovery. Instead of lecturing them for forgetting, we use checklists, visual cues, packing stations, body doubling, timers, and pre-game rituals. Because your child's talent deserves support. Their nervous system deserves understanding. And you, as the parent, deserve a framework that helps you stop riding the emotional roller coaster of they are amazing one day and what is happening the next. The goal is not to excuse the inconsistency. The goal is to understand it well enough to reduce it. The goal is to help your athlete build the executive function scaffolding that allows their talent to show up more often, under more conditions, with more emotional stability and confidence. The ADHD athlete can be one of the most confusing children to parent because their performance can swing dramatically from one moment to the next. One day, your child may look completely locked in. They are focused, energized, physically coordinated, socially engaged, and emotionally invested. They may score, lead, hustle, encourage teammates, and seem totally connected to the game. You leave that moment thinking, finally, they get it. They know what they are doing. But then the next practice comes and they forget their water bottle, walk in late, miss half the instructions, talk while the coach is speaking, and melt down when corrected. The parent's nervous system goes from pride to panic in about 6 seconds, and that is usually when the lecture begins. You have so much potential, why can't you just be consistent? But ADHD is not a consistency disorder because the child does not care. ADHD creates inconsistency because the brain systems responsible for regulation, sequencing, time awareness, working memory, and follow-through are more vulnerable to stress, fatigue, boredom, hunger, criticism, overstimulation, and emotional intensity. ADHD is not simply about being distracted. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition that affects executive function. Executive function is the brain's internal management system. It helps a person plan, organize, start tasks, manage time, remember steps, control impulses, regulate emotions, and shift from one demand to another. When we talk about sports, executive function is not sitting quietly in the background. It is in every single part of athletics. Executive function is what helps a young swimmer remember which event they are in, where their goggles are, when to warm up, how to listen for their heat, and how to recover if they have a bad race. Executive function is what helps a young baseball player remember how many outs there are, where the play is, what the coach sign means, and how to stay mentally present, even when the ball has not come to them in 10 minutes. Executive function is what helps a young dancer remember choreography, spacing, timing, costume changes, corrections, and performance expectations while managing nerves and social comparison. Executive function is what helps a young soccer player hear the coach say, "Stay wide, check your shoulder, communicate, and make the early pass," and actually hold all of that in mind while their body is moving and the game is changing. That is a lot. That is not just pay attention. That is an entire neurological orchestra trying to play together under pressure. And with ADHD, the orchestra may have talent, but the conductor is still developing. The conductor, in this case, is the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the front part of the brain involved in planning, inhibition, emotional control, decision-making, and future thinking. It is the part of the brain that helps a child pause before reacting, remember the goal, follow the plan, and make a thoughtful choice instead of an impulsive one. In a child or teen with ADHD, the prefrontal cortex often needs more support, more structure, more repetition, and more external cues. That means the child may know what to do when calm, rested, and regulated, but lose access to that skill when the environment becomes fast, emotional, loud, unpredictable, or embarrassing. For example, imagine a 12-year-old tennis player who has a beautiful serve when practicing casually with a parent. She can toss the ball well, follow through, and hit with power. But during a match, after double faulting twice, she starts rushing. Her shoulders tighten, her face changes. She mutters under her breath. She looks toward her parent in the stands. Now her brain is no longer just serving. Her brain is managing fear, shame, pressure, body tension, social comparison, and the memory of the last mistake. That is cognitive load. Cognitive load means the amount of mental demand placed on the brain at one time. When cognitive load becomes too high, skills that seemed automatic can fall apart. The parent may think, "She knows how to serve. Why is she doing this?" But inside her nervous system, the serve is no longer just a serve. It has become a threat to her identity. This is where emotional regulation becomes central. Emotional regulation means the ability to feel an emotion without being completely taken over by it. Many ADHD athletes experience emotions quickly and intensely. A missed shot may not feel like a missed shot, it may feel like humiliation. A coach's correction may not feel like instruction, it may feel like rejection. Sitting on the bench may not feel like part of the game, it may feel like proof they are not good enough. This emotional intensity can create reactions that look immature from the outside, but feel overwhelming on the inside. The child may throw equipment, cry, withdraw, blame others, quit mid-practice, argue with the coach, or say, "I hate this sport." Often, what they really mean is, "I hate how I feel right now, and I do not know how to get back to myself." This is one of the most important distinctions parents can learn. Behavior is not always the full story. Behavior is often the smoke. The nervous system is the fire. In other words, what you see on the outside is often only the visible signal of what is happening underneath the surface. The argument, the shutdown, the forgotten gear, the missed warm-up, the eye roll, the refusal, the tears, the explosive reaction after feedback, or the sudden "I don't care" may be the smoke. It is what rises into view. It is what gets everyone's attention. It is what parents, coaches, teachers, and siblings react to. But if we only focus on the smoke, we may spend all of our energy trying to blow it away without ever asking what is fueling it. The nervous system is the deeper fire. The nervous system is the body's internal regulation network. It helps determine whether a child feels calm, alert, safe, threatened, overwhelmed, shut down, energized, or ready to engage. When a child is regulated, their thinking brain is more available. They can listen to the coach, remember the play, tolerate correction, recover after a mistake, and use language instead of reaction. But when the nervous system is dysregulated, the brain begins to prioritize survival over learning. That means the child may react before they can reflect. They may argue before they can process. They may shut down before they can explain. They may forget the instruction, not because they did not care, but because their body moved into stress. This is especially important for ADHD athletes because sports and performance environments are full of nervous system triggers. There is noise, pressure, competition, speed, evaluation, teammates, coaches, parents watching, mistakes happening publicly, transitions happening quickly, and instructions being delivered in real time. For some children, that stimulation helps them come alive. For others, or for the same child on a different day, it can overwhelm the system. A child may walk into practice already tired, hungry, understimulated, overstimulated, embarrassed from school, anxious about performance, or low on dopamine. Then one correction from a coach can feel like a match dropped onto dry grass. When parents only focus on the behavior, they may ask, "Why did you talk back? Why did you forget your gear? Why did you miss the warm-up? Why did you lose your temper? Why can't you just listen?" Those questions are understandable, but they often keep everyone stuck at the smoke level. A nervous system lens asks deeper questions. Was my child overwhelmed? Was the instruction too long? Was there too much sensory input? Was my child hungry, tired, or emotionally flooded? Did the correction trigger shame? Did they have enough time to transition? Did their brain lose the sequence? What support would help them access the skill next time? This does not mean behavior does not matter. It absolutely matters. A child still needs to learn respect, responsibility, emotional regulation, preparation, and accountability. But when we understand the nervous system underneath the behavior, we respond with more precision. We stop confusing stress responses with character flaws. We stop assuming every mistake is intentional. We stop trying to punish a child into regulation, which rarely works, and we start teaching the skills and building the structures that help the child succeed. For example, if an ADHD athlete melts down after missing a shot, the behavior may be yelling, crying, blaming, or quitting. But the nervous system story may be shame, disappointment, adrenaline, rejection sensitivity, perfectionism, and low frustration tolerance colliding all at once. If a child forgets their cleats, the behavior is disorganization. But the nervous system story may include working memory challenges, poor sequencing, time blindness, and a morning routine with no visual checklist. If a child ignores the coach, the behavior may look disrespectful. But the nervous system story may be sensory overload, difficulty processing multi-step verbal instructions, or attention being pulled by movement, noise, or internal anxiety. When parents learn to separate the smoke from the fire, everything changes. They can still hold the child accountable, but they do it in a way that teaches rather than shames. They might say, "You are responsible for speaking respectfully to your coach, and we also need to understand what happened in your body when you got corrected." Or, "You forgot your gear, and we are going to build a packing system so your brain does not have to hold the whole list from memory." Or, "You lost your temper after the mistake, and now we are going to practice a reset routine so your nervous system has something to do besides explode." That is the power of the nervous system lens. It helps parents stop treating every behavior as a moral failure and start seeing it as a signal. A signal does not remove responsibility. A signal gives us information. And when we have better information, we can build better interventions. We can teach the child how to breathe after a mistake, how to use a reset phrase, how to check a gear list, how to ask the coach to repeat one step, how to move their body before competition, how to use food, hydration, and sleep as regulation tools, and how to recover from embarrassment without collapsing into shame. Behavior is the smoke. The nervous system is the fire. And if we want to help ADHD athletes become more consistent, more coachable, more prepared, and more emotionally steady, we have to stop only waving at the smoke and start learning what is fueling the fire. That is where real change begins. Now let's take a different example. Imagine a young basketball player who is incredibly creative. He sees passes other kids do not see. He has rhythm, he has confidence when he is moving. But during practice, the coach teaches a new play. The coach explains it verbally, draws it quickly, and then expects the team to run it. This child nods as if he understands. He may even say, "I got it." But when the drill starts, he goes to the wrong spot. The coach corrects him. He gets embarrassed. Then he overcompensates. Then he starts joking. Then the coach thinks he is not taking it seriously. The parent watching from the sideline thinks, "Why does he always have to be difficult?" But this may not be defiance. It may be working memory. Working memory is the brain's ability to hold information in mind while using it. It is like a mental sticky note. In sports, working memory allows a child to remember instructions while moving, adjust to feedback, track teammates, and apply strategy in real time. ADHD often affects working memory, which means a child may genuinely understand one instruction at a time, but lose pieces when too many instructions are given quickly. So when the coach says, set the screen, roll to the basket, look for the pass, and then rotate back on defense, the child may only retain the first piece or the last piece. This is not because they are not intelligent. This is because the mental sticky note fell off. And parents, this is why saying, I told you already, often does not work. You may have told them, the coach may have told them, the teacher may have told them, but ADHD is not always an information problem. It is often a retrieval problem. Retrieval means the ability to access information at the moment it is needed. The information may be in the brain somewhere, but under pressure, it may not be available. That is why ADHD kids often look like they know something in one setting and completely forget it in another. They are not trying to confuse you. Their brain is context sensitive. It performs differently depending on stimulation, stress, structure, interest, sleep, hunger, and emotional safety. This is also why the ADHD athlete may be amazing in competition, but resistant during practice. Competition often provides urgency, novelty, adrenaline, and immediate feedback. Those ingredients can wake up the ADHD brain. Practice, especially repetitive practice, may feel understimulating. The brain may not get enough dopamine from repeating the same skill over and over. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter involved in motivation, reward, focus, and effort. Many ADHD brains struggle with dopamine regulation, which means tasks that are not immediately interesting or rewarding can be very hard to start and sustain. So a child may love the game but dislike drills. They may love racing but hate stretching. They may love performing but resist rehearsing. They may love scoring but struggle with conditioning. That does not mean they do not care. It means the boring steps between desire and achievement require more external structure. This is where parents can become much more strategic. Instead of saying, go practice, which is too vague for many ADHD brains, try turning practice into a small, visible, time-limited structure. For example, 10 minutes of footwork, 5 minutes of passing, and then we are done. Or, you are going to do 20 free throws, write down how many you make, and then we will track it again tomorrow. Or, before you leave for surf practice, your board, towel, water, sunscreen, and snack go by the door. This is called externalizing executive function. Externalizing executive function means taking the organizational work out of the child's head and putting it into the environment. That might be a checklist, a whiteboard, a bin, a visual schedule, an alarm, a photo of a packed sports bag, or a consistent routine. This is not babying the child. This is building the bridge until the brain can carry more of the load independently. Think of it like training wheels for the nervous system. Nobody looks at a child learning to ride a bike and says, "You are ridiculous for needing support." We understand that balance develops through practice. Executive function develops the same way. The child needs repeated experiences of structure before structure becomes internal. They need to see the routine, repeat the routine, feel the success of the routine, and slowly take ownership of it. That is how ADHD athletes become more independent, not through shame, through systems. Another example may be a young volleyball player who is physically gifted but emotionally reactive. She can jump, hit, serve, and read the court. But if she makes one mistake, she spirals. Her shoulders slump. Her eyes fill with tears. She stops calling the ball. She starts comparing herself to another girl on the team. The parent may think, she is too sensitive. But let's look underneath that. This child may be experiencing rejection sensitivity. Rejection sensitivity is an intense emotional reaction to perceived criticism, exclusion, failure, or disappointment. It is common in many individuals with ADHD, even though not every child experiences it the same way. In sports, rejection sensitivity can make ordinary feedback feel like emotional danger. A coach saying, "Move your feet," may be received as, "You are failing." A teammate rolling their eyes may be received as, "Everyone hates me." A parent looking disappointed may be received as, "I let my family down." Now imagine carrying that level of emotional intensity while also trying to perform. That is not easy. That child does not only need more reps, she needs recovery skills. Recovery skills are the tools an athlete uses to return to regulation after stress, error, or disappointment. This can include breathing, a reset phrase, looking at a visual cue, shaking out the body, taking one sip of water, naming the next play, or using a short internal script like, "Next ball, reset, I know what to do." These are not fluffy tools. These are nervous system tools. They teach the brain that a mistake is not an emergency. A mistake is information. This is one of the most important lessons youth sports can teach. A mistake is information, not identity. For the ADHD athlete, that lesson has to be repeated over and over because the emotional brain may turn mistakes into identity very quickly. I missed the goal becomes, "I am terrible." I got corrected becomes, "Coach hates me." I sat on the bench becomes, "I do not matter." Parents can help by language shaping. Language shaping means intentionally using words that help the child interpret the experience in a healthier way. Instead of saying, "You fell apart again," a parent might say, "I noticed the mistake hit you hard, and then it was hard to reset." That is the skill we are building. Instead of saying, "You have to stop being so emotional," a parent might say, "Your feelings came fast today. Let's practice what you can do in the first 30 seconds after a mistake." Instead of saying, "You wasted your talent," a parent might say, "Your talent is real, and now we are building the systems that help it show up more often." Your talent is real, and we are building the systems that help it show up more often. That removes shame and adds structure. This also helps parents avoid one of the most damaging patterns in sports parenting: confusing potential with pressure. Many parents say, "You have so much potential," and they mean it as encouragement. But some ADHD kids hear that phrase as disappointment. They hear, "You are not becoming who I thought you would be." They hear, "You should be better than this." They hear, "Your current self is not enough." This is especially painful for ADHD children because many of them already live with a chronic sense of falling short. They are often corrected at school, corrected at home, corrected in sports, corrected socially, and corrected around time, organization, volume, impulsivity, and follow-through. By the time they reach the field, they may already feel like the world sees what is wrong before it sees what is strong. Parents must become very careful with their post-game feedback. The car ride home is not the time for a full performance audit. I know it is tempting. I know you watched the whole game. I know you saw the missed opportunity. I know you paid for the tournament, drove across town, packed snacks, washed the uniform, and rearranged your weekend. I know your nervous system is invested too, but your child's nervous system after a game may be raw, activated, exhausted, proud, ashamed, or overstimulated. When you launch into critique too quickly, their brain may not hear coaching. It may hear threat. A better approach is regulation before reflection. Regulation before reflection means the nervous system must settle before the brain can process feedback. You might say, "I loved watching you play," or "That looked like a tough game," or "I could tell you were working hard to stay with it," or "Let's get food first, and we can talk later if you want." Once the child is calm, fed, and more emotionally available, you can ask, "What felt strong today?" What felt hard? What is one thing you want to work on before next time? These questions build self-awareness without flooding the child with shame. Self-awareness is the ability to notice your own patterns, emotions, strengths, and challenges. For ADHD athletes, self-awareness is essential because they need to learn how their brain and body respond under pressure. They need to notice, I play worse when I rush. I get frustrated when I do not understand the instructions. I need to arrive earlier so I do not feel scattered. I need to eat before practice. I need one correction at a time. I need to reset after mistakes instead of pretending I do not care. That is not just athletic growth. That is life skill development. This is where youth sports can become incredibly powerful for ADHD children. Sports can teach sequencing, frustration tolerance, teamwork, accountability, discipline, emotional regulation, body awareness, time management, leadership, and recovery after failure. But those lessons do not automatically happen just because a child is enrolled in a sport. The adults around the child have to help translate the experience. Otherwise, sports can become another place where the child feels misunderstood, shamed, compared, or criticized. Frustration tolerance is a major part of this. Frustration tolerance means the ability to stay engaged when something is hard, uncomfortable, boring, disappointing, or not immediately rewarding. Many ADHD children struggle with frustration tolerance because the brain wants escape when the emotional discomfort becomes too intense. In sports, that may look like quitting, arguing, blaming the referee, refusing to practice, or saying, "This is stupid." The parent's job is not to rescue the child from all discomfort. The parent's job is to make the discomfort tolerable enough that the child can stay engaged and learn. That is a very different kind of parenting. It is not permissive. It is not harsh. It is regulated leadership. Regulated leadership means the parent remains calm, clear, and steady while the child is dysregulated. This is hard. Let's be honest. It is hard to stay calm when your child is crying after losing, refusing to get out of the car for practice, yelling that the coach is unfair, or melting down because they forgot their equipment again. But your regulation becomes part of their regulation. Your nervous system becomes the emotional climate. If you escalate, they escalate. If you shame, they defend. If you panic, they collapse. But if you stay steady, you become the external prefrontal cortex until their internal prefrontal cortex comes back online. And no, this does not mean you let them behave however they want. ADHD-informed parenting still includes accountability, but the accountability is specific, structured, and teachable. You might say, you may be upset, but you may not throw your equipment. You can be disappointed, but you still shake hands. You can take 5 minutes to breathe, and then we return to the team. You are responsible for packing your bag, and we are going to use the checklist until that becomes automatic. You do not have to be perfect, but you do have to repair when your reaction affects other people. Repair is another important concept. Repair means taking responsibility after a rupture in connection or behavior. In sports, repair might look like apologizing to a teammate, thanking a coach, cleaning up equipment, or saying, "I got frustrated and I handled that poorly." Repair teaches the ADHD athlete that mistakes do not have to become shame spirals. They can become growth moments. This is essential because many ADHD kids fear failure so intensely that they avoid accountability altogether. Repair gives them a path back. It says, you are not bad. You made a choice. Now we clean it up and learn from it. This is the difference between shame and responsibility. Shame says, I am bad. Responsibility says, I can do something about this. ADHD athletes need less shame and more responsibility. Shame shuts the brain down. Responsibility gives the brain a next step. Now let's bring in the family system. When one child is an ADHD athlete, the whole family often begins organizing around that child's schedule, emotions, gear, performance, and reactivity. One parent may become the reminder parent. Another parent may become the pressure parent. A sibling may feel ignored because every weekend revolves around tournaments. The child may begin to feel both special and overwhelmed. This is where family systems theory becomes very useful. Family systems theory looks at the family as an emotional unit, meaning one person's behavior affects the whole system. If the athlete is dysregulated, the parent becomes dysregulated. If the parent becomes anxious, the athlete feels more pressure. If siblings feel unseen, resentment grows. If sports become the center of identity, the child may feel loved most when performing. That is why parents need to keep sports in its proper place. Sports can matter deeply without becoming the child's entire identity. A child is not only a goalie, a swimmer, a dancer, a runner, a surfer, a quarterback, a pitcher, or a gymnast. They are a whole human being. They need rest, friendship, boredom, family dinners, laughter, chores, school, spiritual grounding, if that is part of your family, and experiences where their worth is not measured by performance. When a child believes love rises and falls based on athletic success, anxiety grows. When a child knows they are loved before, during, and after performance, confidence has a safer place to develop. What does the ADHD athlete need? They need structure before stress. That means packing the bag the night before, reviewing the schedule, creating a predictable routine, and reducing last-minute chaos. ADHD brains often struggle with transitions, and game day is full of transitions. Home to car, car to field, field to warm up to competition, competition to feedback, feedback to home. Each transition is a place where the child may lose regulation. Structure lowers the load. They need one instruction at a time. Not because they are incapable, but because too many verbal instructions can overload working memory. A coach or parent might say, "Today, focus on quick feet." Not quick feet, attitude, passing, communication, hustle, and body language all at once. One focus gives the brain a target. They need recovery language. After a mistake, they need a phrase that brings them back. Next play, reset, breathe, and look up. One mistake is not the whole game. These short phrases matter because when the nervous system is activated, long lectures do not land. The brain needs simple, repeatable cues. ADHD athletes need process praise because process praise teaches them what to repeat. Process praise focuses on the behaviors underneath performance, not just the scoreboard, the medal, the goal, the time, the role, or the final result. It highlights effort, strategy, preparation, emotional recovery, coachability, courage, persistence, communication, and the ability to keep going after something does not go perfectly. This matters because many ADHD athletes can become emotionally attached to outcomes. If they win, they feel successful. If they lose, they may feel like a failure. If they make the shot, they feel confident. If they miss, they may spiral. Process praise helps separate their identity from the immediate result and teaches them that growth is built through repeated behaviors. Instead of only saying, "You won," a parent might say, "I saw you reset after that mistake and get back into the play." Instead of only saying, "You were amazing," you might say, "I noticed how you kept communicating with your teammates even after you were frustrated." Instead of focusing only on the goal, the point, or the performance, you might say, "I saw you listen to the coach, make the adjustment, and try again." These comments are powerful because they tell the child exactly what they did well. The praise becomes specific, behavioral, and repeatable. The child learns, "Oh, resetting matters, communication matters, listening matters, trying again matters." This is especially important for children with ADHD because they often need help building self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to notice what you are doing, how you are responding, and what is helping or hurting your performance. Many ADHD athletes are so caught in the intensity of the moment that they do not always recognize the positive behaviors they used. A parent's process praise acts like a mirror. It reflects back the skill the child may not have noticed in themselves. When you say, "I saw you take a breath before going back in," or "I saw you ask the coach a question instead of shutting down," you are helping them identify the tools that made them more regulated and effective. Process praise also builds what psychologists call a growth mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that ability can develop through effort, practice, feedback, and strategy. This does not mean every child can become the best at everything. It means the child learns that improvement is possible and that mistakes are part of the learning process. For ADHD athletes, this is crucial because they may be more vulnerable to all or nothing thinking. All or nothing thinking sounds like, "I played terrible," "I always mess up," "I am never going to get it," or "the coach hates me." Process praise gives them a more accurate and hopeful narrative. "I made a mistake, but I recovered. I got frustrated, but I kept playing. I did not understand the instruction at first, but I asked for clarification. I forgot something today, and next time I can use my checklist." This kind of praise also protects identity formation. Identity formation is the process of developing a stable sense of who you are. When a child is praised only for outcomes, their identity can become fragile. They may begin to believe, "I am good when I win," "I am talented when I score," "I matter when I perform." That kind of identity becomes very shaky because performance naturally goes up and down. Process praise teaches something healthier. I am someone who prepares. I am someone who recovers. I am someone who listens. I am someone who keeps working. I am someone who can handle mistakes. That is a much stronger identity because it is rooted in habits, not just results. For example, after a swim meet, instead of saying only, "You dropped time," you might say, "I noticed that you stayed focused during warm-up and did not let the noise around you throw you off." After a soccer game, instead of saying only, "Great goal," you might say, "I saw how you kept moving after you lost the ball, and that helped you get back into position." After a basketball game, instead of saying only, "You played great," you might say, "I noticed you encouraged your teammate after they missed the shot. That is leadership." After a theater performance, instead of saying only, "You were so good," you might say, "I saw you recover when you forgot that line and stay in character. That took courage." After a sailing race, instead of saying only, "You placed well," you might say, "I saw you make a smart adjustment when the wind shifted. That was strategy." The beauty of process praise is that it teaches the child that performance is not just talent. Performance is preparation, regulation, awareness, recovery, strategy, communication, and courage repeated over time. For the ADHD athlete, this is essential because raw talent may appear in flashes, but consistency is built through systems and habits. Process praise helps the child understand which habits are worth repeating. It lowers shame, increases self-awareness, and helps them become less dependent on winning to feel good about themselves. So after the game, meet, race, practice, or performance, try to notice the process before the outcome. Ask yourself, what did my child do that showed growth? Did they recover faster? Did they listen better? Did they pack their own gear? Did they ask for clarification? Did they stay engaged after a mistake? Did they encourage a teammate? Did they use a reset breath? Did they tolerate frustration without quitting? Those are the moments to name. Because when you praise the process, you are not just complimenting your child. You are building their internal blueprint for resilience. You are teaching them that their identity is not built only through trophies, points, applause, medals, or wins. Their identity is built through the habits they practice when things are easy, and even more importantly, through the habits they return to when things get hard. They need adults who can separate the child from the symptom. The child is not lazy. The child is struggling with initiation. The child is not careless. The child needs a system. The child is not dramatic. The child is flooded. The child is not disrespectful every time they react. Sometimes they are overwhelmed and unskilled in that moment. Again, this does not excuse behavior. It helps us intervene accurately. And finally, they need parents who understand that talent is not enough. Talent is the spark. Systems are the oxygen. Regulation is the container. Practice is the repetition. Relationship is the safety. Accountability is the structure. When those pieces come together, the ADHD athlete has a much better chance of becoming not only a stronger competitor, but a more resilient person. The next time you see your child perform beautifully one day and struggle the next, pause before you label it. Ask a better question, not, why are they wasting their potential? Ask, what system would help their talent show up more consistently? Not, why are they being so emotional? Ask, what recovery skill are they missing? Not, why can't they remember anything? Ask, what visual cue or routine can take this out of working memory? Not, why do they fall apart after mistakes? Ask, how can we teach their nervous system that a mistake is survivable? That is the shift, because the ADHD athlete does not need more adults standing around saying, you should know better. They need adults who understand how to help them do better. And when we support the brain underneath the behavior, everything changes. The child feels less shamed and more understood. The parent feels less reactive and more strategic. The coach sees more clearly what the child needs. The family system becomes less chaotic. And the sport becomes what it was always meant to be, a place to build confidence, discipline, resilience, connection, courage, and joy. The ADHD athlete may have talent, but with the right systems, that talent can finally breathe. As we close today, I want you to remember this. Your child's inconsistency is not always a character flaw. Sometimes it is a nervous system asking for structure. Sometimes it is working memory asking for a visual cue. Sometimes it is emotional regulation asking for a reset strategy. Sometimes it is dopamine asking for movement, novelty, and meaningful feedback. And sometimes it is a young athlete who desperately wants to do well, but does not yet have the internal systems to make that happen consistently. This week, instead of focusing only on the final performance, start looking for the system underneath it. Notice where the breakdown keeps happening. Is it before practice when your child cannot find their gear? Is it during warm-up when they seem distracted or emotionally flat? Is it after a mistake when they spiral, shut down, or become defensive? Is it when the coach gives multi-step instructions and your child loses the sequence? Is it in the car ride home when shame enters the conversation and everyone leaves feeling worse? That is where the real work begins. Not only in the score, the time, the role, the win, or the mistake, but in the pattern that keeps showing up around the performance. Look for the transition that keeps falling apart. Look for the moment when your child loses access to their skill. Look for the emotional trigger that turns correction into shame. Look for the missing structure, the missing routine, the missing cue, or the missing reset strategy. When you can find the system that is breaking down, you can stop blaming the child's character and start building the support that helps their talent show up more consistently. And remember, the goal is not to raise a perfect athlete who never misses the shot, forgets the play, loses focus, reacts emotionally, or has a hard moment in front of others. Perfection is not the goal because perfection is fragile. It teaches a child that they are only okay when everything goes well, when they perform at their best, when the coach is pleased, when the scoreboard looks good, or when everyone around them is applauding. The deeper goal is to raise a child who can recover after disappointment, reflect on what happened without collapsing into shame, repair when their behavior affects a teammate, coach, parent, or themselves, and return to the work with more awareness, humility, and maturity. That is what resilience actually looks like. Resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the ability to come back to center after struggle. It is the child learning, I made a mistake, but I am not a mistake. I got frustrated, but I can reset. I forgot the play, but I can learn the system. I lost my temper, but I can repair. I did not perform the way I wanted today, but I can still grow. That is how real confidence is built, not through constant winning, but through repeated experiences of falling apart a little, gathering themselves, learning from it, and trying again. And when we help our children build that kind of internal strength, we are not just helping them become better athletes. We are helping them become more grounded, more emotionally regulated, more accountable, and more peaceful human beings. That is the deeper work. That is the gift. And that is how we help our children find their path to peace. This episode is for educational purposes and to provide support. It's not a substitute for professional mental health evaluation, diagnosis, or treatment. The more we learn to recognize the signs behind the behaviors, the more compassion and support we can offer to our kids, our partners, and ourselves. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this episode was helpful, I'd love it if you shared it with a fellow parent, caregiver, coach, or educator who might need it too. You can also subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes and check out additional tools and resources at thepathtopeacetherapy.com. Follow me on Instagram at thepathtopeacetherapy. If you are in California, I offer virtual sessions. If you are not in the Hermosa Beach or South Bay area, you can book online at The Path to Peace Therapy. And as always, take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, and remember, peace is possible, and you do not have to do this alone.